is the president of the National Action Network and one of America's most renowned civil rights leaders. Whether it was his noteworthy presidential run as a United States Democratic candidate in 2004 or his compelling speech at the Democratic National Convention in Boston, Massachusetts, Reverend Sharpton has had an irrefutable impact on the national politics because of his strong commitment to equality and progressive politics. In April of 2001, Coretta Scott King hailed him as a voice for the oppressed, a leader who has protested justice with a passionate and unrelenting commitment to nonviolent action in the spirit and tradition of Martin Luther King Jr. In February 2007, Reverend Sharpton was called the most prominent civil rights activist in the nation by the New York Daily News. As the head of the National Action Network, a civil rights organization that currently has over 45 chapters and affiliates throughout the nation, Sharpton has been applauded by both supporters and opponents for the challenging American political establishment to include all people in the dialogue, regardless of race, gender, class, or beliefs. Few political figures have been more visible during the last 2 decades than Sharpton. His daily radio show, Keeping It Real, has been picked up in more than 40 U.S. markets. Reverend Sharpton also has a TV show on TV One that explores various issues with the barbershop serving as an informal setting. Sharpton recently caught the eye of conservative pundit Rush Limbaugh, who said on his own radio program that Reverend Sharpton has the best shot of anyone at becoming the Limbaugh of the left. Limbaugh isn't the only one touting Sharpton's oratory and political skills. Adam Nagurney, the chief national political writer at the New York Times, called Sharpton smart, articulate, and eloquent. And as anyone that has ever heard him talk from the pulpit can testify, Sharpton is a man with a heart and firm ideological beliefs. He has a command of politics that rivals some of the great New York party bosses and no less significant. He has an understanding of the way the press works that rivals more than a few city editors. The man that became Al Sharpton began as a youngster when his surrogate father, the late Godfather of Soul, James Brown, told him, "You can't set your sights on nothing little. You got to go for the whole hog." Reverend Al Sharpton has been doing just that ever since. He was born on October 3rd, 1954 in Brooklyn, New York, and began his ministry at the tender age of 4. The same year, he preached his first sermon at Washington Temple Church of God in Christ in Brooklyn. 5 years later, the Washington Temple Church's legendary Bishop F.D. Washington licensed his protege to become a minister in the denomination. Sharpton's civil rights career began almost as early. At age 13, Reverends Jesse Jackson and William Jones appointed Sharpton youth director of the New York SCLC Operation Breadbasket, an organization founded by the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Reverend Sharpton is a member of the Bethany Baptist Church in his native Brooklyn neighborhood, where the late William A. Jones Jr. was pastor. Reverend Jones mentored Sharpton's civil rights career as a teenager when Sharpton was the youth director of the Operation Breadbasket under Jones and Reverend Jesse Jackson. Both men have played a key role in Sharpton's life since he was 13. Reverend Sharpton still preaches throughout the United States and abroad on most Sundays and averages 80 formal sermons a year. Reverend Sharpton says his religious convictions are the basis for his life. Reverend Al and Kathy Jordan Sharpton have 2 daughters, Dominique and Ashley. Dominique is working with her father on his nationally syndicated radio program and pursuing a career in acting. Ashley's in college. Without further ado, it is my honor to present to you the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Friend and brother, Reverend Pitts, to all the ministers of the gospel, and all of those that have gathered for this service at this hour. First, I thank God for another day. A day that we neither earn nor deserve. A lot of us get up in the morning like God owed us another day. A like we did something to earn another day. But I don't care how saved you are. I don't care how holy you look to us. I don't care how pious you may appear. All of us have done enough wrong that any night we sleep, if God just checked the record, none of us would see the next morning. So every day is a gift from God. A lot of my friends travel with me, always checking the weather where we are. But I rarely check the weather. Every day is a good day to me. Could be a good cold day, good hot day, good rainy day, good dry day, good clear day, good cloudy day. Don't matter to me. Every day above ground is a good day. Get up, I realized that somehow while I slept, a divine decision was made to look beyond my faults and supply my needs. So I try to do something every day to show God that I'm grateful that He gave me what He didn't owe me, but He gave it to me anyhow. And I'm happy to be here with one of the young and strong and promising and prolific preacher pastors of our time. Your pastor. Reverend Pitts has served and shown what ministry is supposed to be about, and then to all of the pastors and ministers and elected officials, Sister Williams, give her a hand. Long-time friend from Newburgh, Reverend Frank Jones, is with me today. Many of you see my show on TV One, the one responsible for that, Robin Green. Stand up, Robin. She's with us today. I'm happy to be a New Hope for this church anniversary. I was thinking as Reverend Pitts had invited me, and then I got a call from one of the Danbury papers this week, and I've been working all week on this police brutality case in New York. And they called and asked me about my being in Danbury today. And I said, oh no, we'll be there. They said, what is he going to do? I said, well, I've been invited to preach. I don't understand what you mean what I'm going to do. What I'm supposed to preach. They said, well, we just asking because you're known to be controversial. I said, well, really? I said, I don't know about being controversial. I don't lie to folk and then deport them. So. To a town of switching bait. I don't know how controversial I'm supposed to be. I figure I get that out early so they can run and file. But people do not understand. One of the things that I think has been missing, which is why I respect your pastor so, is people do not understand and really try to get away from the role of the church in the first place. The church is not just a place for you to just come and get a spiritual thrill. It also supposed to serve the whole person. And a lot of us have reduced church to just our thrills rather than our responsibility when church is over. If the extent of your salvation is what you do in here, then there's something wrong with your salvation. Ultimately, you will not be judged by what you do in service. Anybody can hold it 2 hours a week. You will be judged by what you do when you leave service. The reason that this church was founded 113 years ago was to give a spiritual basis to people who had real challenges at that time and could not go to other places in Danbury to worship. Had the social order been fair, New Hope might not have come into existence. But because of the bigotry and bias of that time, they formed a church where colored citizens could worship. But even then, the irony is that even though they were excluded and segregated, they were able to rise above the bitterness and call the church New Hope. Because we've always had to hope against the tide. We've always had to keep going even when it was going against us. And that's the testimony of the church. We can't get now 113 years later and act like we have nothing to do with what's going on. Because you wouldn't be in existence if it hadn't been based on what was going on. I go to some church in Ireland, the preacher say to me, honored to have you, but want you to stay in the book. I said, well, what book you got? New Negro edition of the Bible I didn't get. But the Bible I read, God always used men and women in the affairs of men at that time. God made Joseph governor. That's a political position. God used David to challenge Goliath. God used Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego to challenge Nebuchadnezzar. God used Daniel to challenge Belshazzar. So what makes you think God can't use Al Sharpton to challenge George Bush? Sit down and shut up and let somebody that's not scared stand up and say they gotta be scared. But some of these issues are not political and moral. Something immoral about an administration that could see weapons of mass destruction in Iraq that's not there, but couldn't see a hurricane in New Orleans that was there. For the rejected and the marginalized, then what are we being called to do? How do we come in Jesus' name and then decide who we Why is Pitts out there fighting for immigrants? Why is Sharpton fighting for kids with criminal record getting shot by police in New York? Well, why did Jesus meet the woman at the well? Why did he heal a woman with leprosy? You can't talk about I want to be like Jesus and then act like him. That's why Jesus said, if you want to be with me, pick up your cross. A lot of us want to wear a cross, but don't want to bear a cross. And we built great cathedrals full of titles with no function. Everywhere I go, apostles, they tell me they title, but they can't tell me what they do. Got too many ministers, don't minister to nobody. Have too many missionaries with no missions. Have too many trustees that can't be trusted. God ain't gonna judge you by what you call yourself. He'll judge you by what you do. That's why when they came to Jesus and he rewarded, he said, I was hungry and you fed me, naked and you clothed me, in prison and you visited me. If you are not dealing with the character of the Bible, you need to quit misquoting the Bible. We have the double challenge today. The challenge 113 years ago was the fight against those that were biased on the outside. We've got to challenge the bias that remains, and then the self-destruction that's on the inside. Bad enough when others think we nothing is worse when we're being told and celebrating we're nothing ourselves. Our young people are being given a culture of self-denigration. So now, it's bad enough that others call us N-word, now we celebrate calling ourselves N-word. We make Vogue denigrate our women. We're really the only words, but if you call yourself something, and you put that in children, it puts a ceiling on their ambition. Because if a young woman thinks she ain't nothing, she won't try to be nothing. And if young people think that young women like Erica are odd, they won't try to be like Erica. They'll be thinking they're defined by the size of their hips rather than the development of their brain. Some of the gangster rappers the other week out in California. And they told me, well, Remy, we respect what you do, but you don't understand. We just rap about what's there, reality. They change reality, we change our rap. I said, but that's not our history. Our history was not just to sing about what was there. The genius of our culture was that we could paint a picture that wasn't there and inspire people to achieve what they couldn't see. What did we sing in slavery? Go down Moses. Swing low, sweet chariot. We wasn't singing about niggas in the field picking cotton. We shall overcome. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. We wasn't singing about the hole in the back of the bus. This new thing of just being able to only rap and sing about what you see doesn't inspire you to change anything. The other one said, well, you understand, we just a mirror. We just reflect what's there. I said, well, that's strange to me. I use a mirror every morning. I get up out the bed wherever I am, go in the bathroom, look in the mirror, hair all over my head, sleep around my eyes, slob around my mouth. I don't walk outside talking about I'm going to keep it real. Just to reflect what you see, mirrors are to correct what you see. We must, in this generation, as you build and expand this historic church, we must be the correctors of society. We must inspire those inside the community, challenge those outside, and represent what is right, even if it's not popular. And if you're not willing to risk that, then you're not really following Jesus. We're following some modified, acceptable version of what they want to call Jesus. Let me turn to the book. Let's go to 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel, 16th chapter. Beginning at the 10th verse, 1 Samuel 16 and 10. And it reads, again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. Samuel said unto Jesse, the Lord hath not chosen these. Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all thy children? And he said, there remaineth yet the youngest. And behold, he keepeth the sheep. Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. I want to use for a thought this afternoon, when you are not the choice. When you are not the choice. I was thinking, as I said, as I was reading the church history, about how 113 years ago we could not worship in other Christian churches here in Danbury. We were not the choice or the kind of members and parishioners they would want. And then bringing it all the way to modern times, some of the hottest shows on television, rather than these choice shows. People run to the TV every week to see who gonna win American Idol. People get up and sing the best they can, trying to be somebody's choice. And the thing that always marvels me is the psychological imprint that results in being rejected. Many of us in life carry psychological wounds all the way through life, and many times never even honest about them to ourselves, because we don't want to face the fact that we've been rejected. A lot of you sit here right now, behave certain ways as a result of rejection, and don't even know why you act like that, because you buried it so deep in you and have been so afraid to face it that you choose your mates and you choose your friends and you choose where you're going in life to protect yourself from being rejected. A lot of us don't try to do certain things because we're afraid that people are going to laugh at us, or the pain of rejection. I remember yesterday, just yesterday, we were
talking, yesterday, May 3rd, was the 75th birthday of James Brown. He was like a father. He died 2 years ago. And he used to tell me about when he was growing in the South, in Augusta, Georgia, trying to sing. People would tell him that he screamed too much, and he was too loud, and he was too short and dark. In those days, the balladeers and the singers were smooth and tall and light-skinned. And he had to not only make it in a competitive field, he had to get past a sense of his own complexes. And I said, well, what gave you the strength to overcome all of that? He said, I just made up in my mind that God brought me to do what I did. I never forgot that, because many of us don't understand that everybody born was born to fulfill some purpose. We all act like God called preachers. God called everybody to something. Everybody in this room, God called to do something. Now, the reason many of us never fulfill the calling is because we are setting up criteria on ourselves that really protect us from our calling. We tell ourselves, well, I'm not educated enough, I don't have enough money, or I don't have the connections, or you ask your friend, what do you think, or your family, do you think I can do it? Like God need a cosigner to call you. First thing you must understand is that God called you to something. Whatever you lacked, He already knew that. So inherent in the calling is whatever He knew you didn't have, He must have made provisions for it. God is all wise and got all power in His hand. Why would He call you to something that you couldn't do? Unless He was going to make a way for you to do it if you stood up and did it anyhow. But then here comes the subject. The reason a lot of us don't do it is because we're not the choice of everybody else. And rather than listen to God, we listen to the choice of others. Well, I'd like to do that, but don't nobody think I can. Well, maybe that's God's point. Because as I read this Bible, God didn't call too many big shots to do nothing. The things that we look to, God don't look to. Bring you to my text. There was a king once named Saul. God had ordained Saul the king of Israel. Saul was popular and strong, but like so many of us, we get carried away in our own ego. And we stop believing that God is using us, and we think we are power unto ourselves. We forget that we're operating on the mercy and the anointing of God, and we start operating like it is our own ability. One thing about God, Prince, is God ain't got to argue with us. You get carried away, God just go around you and pick something else. So God had got tired of Saul. He tested him. Saul kept being disobedient, so he rejected him. Samuel, who had anointed him, Frank Jones, was begging God to give him another chance. He said, why do you keep crying to me about Saul? Saul think he all of that. So I tell you what, get your heifer in a horn and fill the horn up with oil and go to a city called Bethlehem. There's a man there named Jesse. And I've already chosen one of his sons to be the new king. I often wondered why God didn't just tell Samuel who he was going to get. But if he knew who he was going to get and went to town and asked for him, we'd all thought it was Samuel's choice. But Samuel didn't even know who he was looking for. He showed up in Bethlehem, and all of those in town were saying, do you come in peace? What are you here for? He said, I'm looking for a man named Jesse. And I come with good tidings. God has chosen one of his sons to be the new king. Found Jesse, and he gave Jesse the good tidings, the good news. Jesse must have felt proud. One of my boys is going to be the head of state. One of my boys will be down in history. and strapping and had stature. He looked like a king. Samuel looked at him, ready to anoint him, but God said, not him. Ran to another one who speaks well, and his flowing oratorical ability certainly could raise a nation. God said, not him. God said, let me quit arguing with you, Samuel. I don't look at man's countenance. I look at man's heart. Y'all keep looking at the wrong thing. When he went through all 7 of the sons, Samuel almost has an afterthought. Some of y'all know what being an afterthought is. Nobody ever thought you were going to be nothing. Nobody ever thought you had no ability. You were the afterthought. As an afterthought, he said, well, do you have any more children? He must have been embarrassed. He must have felt bad. I got this man all excited and enthused, and I done rejected all of his sons. And as an afterthought, he said, well, I got one more, but he ain't nothing but a kid. He out in the field somewhere feeding sheep. Samuel said, well, we can't do this until somebody brings him. And they went out in the field and got a little shepherd boy named David. And when they brought David, they say he hadn't even got close to the prophet. Samuel looked and saw, had hair tossed all over his head and ruddy in complexion. Must have been smelling like lamb that day. God said, that's him. Because I look past all of the superficial stuff. I look past all of the shortcomings. I look past all of the flaws. And I'll choose who I want to make. Somebody here today think because you made mistakes, you ain't the people's choice. You might have some bad in your background, so they wouldn't choose you, but God likes to take people that nobody else would choose. He likes to take rejects. He likes to take people that you would laugh at and dismiss and cast away. That's who God likes to choose. And I thought about it, Pitts. I know why he does it now. See, if God just chose those with the right background and the right pedigree, we would think it was them. But if God takes some reject, somebody that we would think would be the last one in the world, and he lifts them up and cleans them off and wipes them down and corrects their past, then he can get the glory, because we say only God could have done that. Choice if you're God's choice. God can choose who he will and may. All through the Bible, everybody God used to move history was somebody that wasn't the right choice. Somebody the world would have rejected. God takes rejects. In fact, the Bible said the stone that the builder rejected became the cornerstone of a new world order. I was flying not long ago, Martin Luther King III. We were going around the country getting ready for the 40th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. We get ready to land one night in an airport somewhere, and as the plane was circling, I said, you know, Martin, this is going to sound strange, but your father really won. I know that sounds strange. He was killed before his 40th birthday, left a beautiful widow and 4 kids, never knew if y'all became adults, never knew if y'all went to school, never knew if you married. But God chose him to do something that in the end he won. He said, well, what do you mean, Al? I said, well, you remember that courthouse down in Alabama? That we see pictures, your mother was short, where they dragged your father up and down the stairs and prosecuted and scandalized him? He said, yeah. I said, do you realize every January that courthouse is closed? The judge can't come to work. Clerk got to stay home. Court officers got a day off to celebrate your daddy's birthday. In Georgia, Georgia, the segregated school that they didn't let him attend as a child, closed the third Monday of every January. And little white children in Georgia's home read books about your father. God said if you be faithful over a few things, I'll make you ruler over many. Too many of us are trying to worry about what is going to happen if you put God in charge. God will snatch victory out the jaws of defeat. God will take you wherever you never thought you could go. Don't worry about if the world didn't choose you. If God chooses you, he can use you. Somebody said to me, well, Reverend, that's true, but you don't know my background. But whatever you've done, don't run from it, run to it. Because sometimes God likes to use others' mistakes to give other people strength to get through theirs. The disgrace is not what you've been through. The glory is that you got through. I remember when I was a kid, I used to love to hang around Muhammad Ali. And every time he'd come to New York, I used to attach myself to his entourage. And I remember he was jogging one morning training to fight at the Garden. And I was running around with him. I wasn't but a teenager, but I was already a boy preaching. He knew me. And I said, Ali, let me ask you a question. He said, what do you want, Sharp? And I said, let me just ask you this. When did you know you were the greatest? He looked at me strangely. He said, well, I'll tell you the truth. He said, 1964, I fought a man named Sonny Liston. He was a big, brutal fighter. Nobody ever fought him and won. He could knock you out with either hand. He said, I got in the ring that night in Miami, and everybody bet that I wouldn't win. I wasn't a choice, but I jabbed and I danced, and finally, mid-fight, he couldn't come out the corner, and they proclaimed me the heavyweight champion of the world. And I threw my arms up and yelled, I am the greatest. He said, but I wasn't great yet. Said a few years after that, they took my title because I refused to fight in the war in Vietnam. They stripped me, they broke me, took everything I had. And then after 10 years, I fought my way back. And one night in Africa, in Zaire to be specific, I faced a younger, stronger version of Sonny Liston named George Foreman. The whole world bet against me. I wasn't their choice. They said, he's too old now, he can't dance no more. He said, I couldn't dance. I laid on the ropes all night and formed the rope-a-dope. And when I had tied him out, I hit him and knocked him out. And I became, for the second time, the heavyweight champion of the world. And I yelled again, I am the greatest. But I wasn't great yet. Did I tell you when I became great? Sharpton, he said one day I went to San Diego and the arena was full. And when I came down the aisle, all the fans were screaming, Ali, Ali. All my celebrity friends, Diana Ross and them at ringside, and everybody was yelling Ali, and all the photographer was taking my picture. And I got in the ring with somebody nobody ever heard of, named Ken Norton. He said in the second round, Norton broke and hit and broke my jaw. He said, and I felt pain like I never felt it. I was going down. He said, I looked at the crowd that was cheering me. They started cheering me. All my celebrity friends grabbed their purses and was running out. I looked in my corner, men I bought homes for and bought Cadillacs for. They were ready to throw in the towel. But somehow, before I hit the deck, strength came from somewhere. He said, you ain't great, Sharpton, till you've been knocked down, till you've been humiliated, till you've been embarrassed, till you've been shamed, and somehow God bring you back. Oh, Robert, I used to hide my mistakes. I put them up front now. Because every time I had to cross a hill, it made my legs stronger. Every time I was knocked down and got up, it made me more resolved. I'm not ashamed of what I've been through. I'm here to tell you that God will make a way somehow. Well, Reverend, that's true, and I believe it, but I don't know if I got the strength to do it well. Let me leave you with this. I was talking the other night to Senator Obama, and I was telling him I like what he's talking about with hope. His book, Audacity of Hope, and generation ago, Jesse Jackson, he's talking about keep hope alive. But Frank, hope is all right. But I want to tell y'all this as I leave. There's a step past hope. Because hope is just a feeling. Hope is maybe tomorrow will be a better day. Hope is maybe my luck will change. Hope is maybe my ship will come in. But there's something a little deeper than that called faith. In fact, faith is the substance of things. Hope for the evidence of things unseen. Faith is when the doctors give up, but you hold on for another doctor. Faith is when you got a pile of bills and no money, but you say he will provide all of my needs. Faith is when your friends walk out, when your loved ones don't know your name, but you say, I don't believe he brought me this far. Believe me now, we come this far by faith. A lot of folks don't understand faith. It'll give you that edge. I remember about 15, 16 years ago, man called me from the New York Times. I told Ivan this story. He said, Shopton, we've been watching a lot of your work. We want to do a profile on it. All the folks on my staff said, well, that's one of the more prominent papers in the world. You ought to do it. I said, well, what do I have to do? He said, well, I got to travel around with you for about a week or two. Watch you do whatever you do. I took him with me everywhere. College speeches, rallies, TV shows, radio programs. Wherever I went, I took him with me. We got to the end of the week and I was in staff meeting and I was sitting there and one of my assistants said, well, you know you can't take him to church with you tomorrow. I said, why not? They said, well, he wouldn't understand our kind of service. I said, yeah, but he can't write my story unless we go to church with me. Sister Williams, I waited till late that Saturday night and I told him I'm going to pick you up 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. He said, why? I said, because I'm going to bring you to church with me. He said, well, he said, I've always been intrigued by the black church. He said, I'm glad you're doing that because I really never understood y'all's church. I said, well, why would you say that? He said, well, y'all are so emotional and passionate and demonstrative and make such loud noises. He said, in my church, we're so quiet and refined and we sing those quiet anthems and that's how we have service different from y'all. I said, well, maybe if we live quiet and refined lives, a little hymn and anthem would do on Sunday. But if you had to make it the best way you could, if you had to make ends meet, if you had to hold on in the midst of trouble, if you had to pray to bring your children through, it might make you holler a little bit on Sunday. It might make you scream a little bit. I picked them up early the next morning, got over to the church. We walked in the church. As we got in the lobby of the church, he stopped me and he said, hold on a minute, Shopton. He said, maybe you can explain some of this stuff to me. Yes, sir. He said, maybe you can straighten out some of my confusion. sickness that nobody saw coming. They rushed her to the hospital. She lay there for 3 long months. Every week she would call the job, asking them to send her check because she couldn't pay her bills. She couldn't afford the hospitalization, but nobody would return a call. She emailed and everything, but her boss just ignored her. After 3 long months, she went home and they put a 72-hour eviction notice and posted it on the door. She went to church and got on her knees and called on God. She went home and got up the next morning and started packing her furniture. Nothing happened. She went to bed and got up the next morning and gathered all of her clothes together. But she kept on praying. She got up early on the 3rd morning, waiting on the marshal to come. But she went out and looked in the mailbox. And when she reached in the mailbox, the check she'd been waiting on was in the mailbox. She grabbed the check. She ran to the bank. She ran from the bank and ran by the rent office and paid all her back rent. But she didn't stop there. She ran from the bank rent office over to the church. And she's been doing this ever since. He said, all right, I got that one, but look up in the choir stand. There's a man there. Keep clapping, going up and down like this. What's that all about? I said, you don't know that man's story. His name is Brother Brown. Brown was diagnosed about 4.5 years ago with terminal cancer. They told him he had 2 months to live. He went and took all of his savings and went to 2 different specialists. And they told him that his doctor was right. He'd be gone in 2 months. He came to church that Friday night. I was sitting in the pulpit. He got on his knees and he called on God. He said, Lord, 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 you a doctor that never lost a patient. There's more medicine in the hem of your garment than any pharmacy in town. If it be your will, I want you to heal my body. That's been 4.5 years ago, and he's still here. So every time the choir sings, he's thanking God. He's thanking God. Yes! Yeah! I got ready to go to the pulpit. He said, hold it. I got to ask you one more. On the right-hand side, about 5 rows back, there's a lady there. She kind of tilted to the side. She keeps jumping up and down like this. It looked like she's going to fall over, but she won't fall over, and she can't stand up. What's that all about? I said, well, let me tell you about that woman. You don't know her story. That woman and her husband had built a nice business. They built up so high. They bought a house out in the suburbs. They had a little girl and a little boy. They made so much money that every Christmas he'd buy her a Cadillac and buy him one too. But then early one morning, the roof fell in. The rug was pulled out. She woke up and found out her husband had left her, went off with her oldest daughter from a former marriage, disgraced the family, abandoned his children. She sat there, all the money gone. She lost the car. She started losing her utilities. They cut the gas off. They cut the lights off. Finally, they took and put her out the house. She took a little girl and a little boy and moved into the projects in Brooklyn, New York. She tried to make feet to the side and jump up and down like this. I told him the reason I know her story is I'm her little boy.
It completely turned my life around, gave me back the independence and the freedom that I needed.
The key word there is independence.
Guide dogs are an important part of life for many blind people, and the law permits them everywhere that's open to the public.
In the last 50 years, I've had 6 guide dogs, all from the Guide Dog Foundation.
She's my best friend, and it's because she's always there for me 110% of the time.
The Guide Dog Foundation for the Blind has been providing guide dogs to blind people free of charge for more than half a century.
It gives me the confidence to go try things and to go do things that I probably wouldn't ordinarily do.
Now I go where I want and I do what I want.
People have to understand that the dog is working, and when they want to try to pet the dog, it breaks her routine.
A blind person and a guide dog are a team, working for independence.
And so put the two of us together, and we're invincible.
To learn more, call the Guide Dog Foundation for the Blind, 1-800-548-4337.